My name is Fleming, and I've been living in Exeter for 30-something years. And there was a time when we wondered how many Democrats we could get in a room. And may I offer that we can get a number of them in a room. The forum tonight is an opportunity for Exeter voters to hear from our state rep candidates. The town committee has put this together, Skip Arian particularly as a point person, and we think it's a good contribution to our civic life for our community media or whatever it might be, for us to be out and to hear from our legislators or prospective legislators. With that in mind, may I note, as way of introduction, that we do have 4 incumbent Democratic state reps representing Exeter. We also have Alexis Simpson, who's doing a great job, for those of you that know Representative Simpson. And she's what's called the floterial. She is not part of this forum, it's a separate district. We also are represented, just as a side note for a minute, by a tremendous state senator. May I introduce, she's here not as part of the forum, but as a citizen, Senator Deb Altshuler is here. And for those of you that are also paying attention, there's a national ticket that is exciting, and we welcome. And there's also a governor's race that's open that we should have some appreciation for. And there's a primary in that, a Democrat and a Republican primary. And then we have Chris Pappas is running for our Congress seat. But back to our forum for tonight. May I offer apologies from Katrina Heinrich and from Gabriel Grossman, who have family commitments tonight, and they've asked to be excused. Gabby is one of the 4 incumbents for people to recognize, and then Katrina Heinrich would be the 5th name on the ballot. So, introducing the folks that are here tonight, Linda Haskins, Julie Gilman, and Mark Paige. Welcome to them. The thought is that we would ask some general questions that would be both from the moderator and from a general consensus, and then take some from the audience. If people still want to fill out a sheet, there might be something there. If we want to get it along the way, we're welcome to look at that. There was just a question that perhaps I would just I would just ask the questions as opposed to trying to pass the mic around. But if there's anybody that's got a question and they'd like to make sure it gets considered, please feel free. Anyway, so to welcome us, and Linda, Representative Haskins.
Pass the mic.
And what we'll do is, these are going to just be 1-minute introductory points. You have to tell us, who they are, and that's it. All right, anyway, welcome.
Thank you. So, my name is Linda Haskins. I first came to town in 1981, and I was here for 20 years, and then I became a vagabond and went hither and yon. I had a chapter in Georgia, Massachusetts, and then I came back here 7 years ago. So, I love this town, and when I was asked to run, my predecessor in the State House was moving to California. So I thought, well, why not? I'm a retiree, and this is a job where your time commitment really depends on the committee work that you do and how much research you want to put behind it. So I'm on an environmental committee, which has long been a passion of mine. I was happy to be endorsed by a couple of different environmental groups, including Wild Voices of New Hampshire. I had never heard of them, but I'm happy to be recommended by them. At any rate, so last term was my first. People ask me what I enjoy most about being in the legislature, and it's easily the people that I've met. We have 4 vetted, proven, active Democratic leaders from Exeter. Gabriel Grossman is on the Children and Family Law Committee, an extremely important committee. She has a neurodivergent child, and she has been prominent in the State House advocating for people with all manner of disabilities. And she's very sorry she couldn't be here tonight. But as for myself, I enjoy the environmental work, which I'll talk more about when we get to that question.
Great, thank you. Representative Gilman,
Thank you, Ken. Do you want me to stand up?
Yes.
Well, I'm Julie Gilman, and for background, a lot of you already know it. I did grow up in Exeter, and had to leave after college because I got a degree in architecture, and at the time, in the 80s, female architects were few and far between, and in New Hampshire, they were very far between. So I found a job in Massachusetts, paid well, stayed there, and interestingly, met my husband in Boston, although he grew up in Brentwood. So we went to the same high school, a little age difference, but we had things in common. Like I didn't have to tell him about Mr. Smith in social studies, because he had Mr. Smith too. I know we have some questions that you want to ask Kevin about our committees and things, so
yes.
I can just talk about me.
We just wait for a minute on that one. We'll do a second round though.
Yes, I'll finish talking about me. So my husband and I were living down in Boston. We have, after we married, we have twin daughters, Meredith and Guinevere, who are, like I said, in the 80s, 27. Cannot believe it, closer to 30 than not. Don't need mom anymore. But that gave me the time to serve the town of Exeter and the state. And one of my background things I left out is I've been serving on the Exeter Select Board for almost 18 years. It's fun. It's fun. There are a lot of issues, but for the most part, it's satisfying. And for both these jobs, one of the things that somebody, if I was going to recommend, please run for my place, or please run, I would say it all depends on how much you're willing to read, because there's so much of the state law that you have to research in order to be sure you're not duplicating something or being the opposite of something and making everyone confused. And the select board is all the reports that we get, the studies that we've done that we use to make a decision about what projects go first. I think that's it for my personal life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Paige.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you for everybody for coming out on a really nice evening and sharing this time. And participating in the civic process. It's nice to know we can have a civil discussion about issues. It has been an honor to serve. This will be my third term if I'm reelected in the House. It has been an honor to serve. I can probably speak for my colleagues when I say when we walk into that building, it's an honor to say we represent Exeter and the citizens of Exeter. And take that to heart. We have an incredible delegation of the incumbents right now, as Linda alluded to. I'll give you a brief biographical sketch, but one of the things that I think is important to know about who I am is that I'm a product of the public schools.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So, that's an important issue in the legislature, as many of you may know. We have different forces working against public education, but my father was a public school teacher, my mother was a public school teacher, my wife is a public school teacher. All my kids have gone to public schools. We just sent one off to college. All of them have gone to Exeter or going to Exeter. And I was a public school teacher a long time ago. That's how I started my career in education. I moved on and practiced law and still am an attorney and a public policy professor. And we've been living here in Exeter for about 20 years. You know, since we've been here, we've been actively engaged in this community, and it has been a joy. The town has changed, it's grown, it's in many, many good ways. Great Bay Kids, you may see that on Route 27. That was one of the first boards I joined when I came here, and I'm proud to say that part of a team that led the effort to build the new center that you see on 27. I say new. I think it's probably old now, but that is an issue that is dear to me in terms of education because we need affordable child care in this region in particular. So we were able to expand, and you know the funny thing is that wait list we had a wait list of 100 kids on day one. I will say very briefly that when Skip Berrien asked me to run when he was retiring in 2020, it was a reflective moment for me because of the fact that that was a moment where I wanted to look at my kids and my community and say, what did you do at that moment in time? And that was an offer that we've been able to, that I'm proud to say that I've served and along with my colleagues and engaged in this effort really for democracy. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. So we'll talk more. I sit on the Judiciary Committee. I know we'll talk more about that, and I can talk about my work there.
Representative, why don't you go with that then?
Sure.
The next question we had was what committee assignments do the reps have, and then how has that worked out?
Yeah,
So
great.
if you would, please.
Sure, yeah. So I sit on the Judiciary Committee. When I first started, you know, it was a rough going. All the extreme abortion bans were coming right through the Judiciary Committee, and some of those fights we didn't win as Democrats. Some of the extreme stuff we did stop. 15-day abortion ban, we stopped that. Yeah, 15 days. The thing that came through the Judiciary Committee, and you know, it's hard because all the attention is at the presidential level, and a lot of the oxygen's taken up there. But I can tell you that a lot of things that are extreme go through the House, or try to go through the House, and a lot of our job has been battling extremist positions. So on the Judiciary Committee, we were able to stop some of the most extreme abortion bans. Frank Edelblatt wanted a blanket subpoena power to investigate teachers. That came through the Judiciary Committee. We stopped that. But that's part of... What I say about my work on the judiciary so far, but we're going to flip the House and be a little better, is that we were trying to stop very bad things from becoming law, the extremist stuff. At the same time, the second part of our job is to pass laws, and I've been trying to find common ground, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about some of the accomplishments. But the Judiciary Committee has been really a hotbed for a lot of the stuff that you see that has changed New Hampshire. It is not the laws and the extremist battles that we've been having. That is not the New Hampshire way. We are starting to see a change. But that's been a lot of the work on the judiciary, is fighting back against extremist stuff. And I know, I hear it from the constituents in Exeter. I get hundreds of emails about somebody saying, stop this. And so I take that to heart. And really, it's a lot of work. As you know, the legislature is a volunteer position. I joke, I say I do it for the money. That's $100. It's a volunteer position, for those who don't know. But anyways, I enjoy it, and thanks very much.
Well, coming to the State House from the town, first Skip did ask me too, and yeah, he's very convincing. My perspective was that as a selectman, or select board member, I saw rules or laws that were changing at the State House that affected how the town operated. Might affect how your taxes are levied, might affect what you can do with your property. And I thought, well, when Skip asked me, I thought, well, here's a place that I can go and have my hands on it directly, so that these issues which affect you, without you knowing that we're making changes, because who listens to the municipal and county government committee, it's where I can stop things. It's where I can stop things or better things. We have had, I've been on the committee for 4 terms, 8 years. And I've known, we've gotten a nice solid group of Democrats that have like-minded goals, and we've had an interchangeable group of Republicans who have had particular goals every year, something different. Worked well together, we enjoyed it, we all socialized. My chairman is very conservative and disagrees that there's a lack of housing, that there's a housing crisis. He's just like, let the fair market take care of it. And so that's something we disagreed on. There are a couple things about extending tax exemptions for people that don't really need exemptions, they just want it because they want it. And there's some examples in town I could explain, but I don't want to point fingers at anyone. But we agreed on that. We don't want to squeeze the balloon and have one group get a good deal while the other group, the other sides of the balloon, pay for it. And the other thing we agree on is that the current leadership of the House, the Speaker of the House, and who his floor leaders are, et cetera, have really played games with our committees and what bills go to our committees and what happens with what's called a committee of conference. And my committee chair is actually running a campaign to be Speaker of the House in this coming term. And I might vote for him because he's reasonable and he's not going to play the games that I've seen happening. There are bills that go to judiciary that should come to municipal and county for a second opinion or as a second committee, and that would be the right to know laws that, the lawyers deal with how to say it, but the select board deals with producing the facts and the goods that people are looking for. Oops, I had to stop. So that's municipal and county government, 8 years, enjoy it, love it, have a good working relationship with everyone. Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, I'm on one of the environmental committees, and it says environment and agriculture. Now, I'll confess, I didn't know much about agriculture. I've been a suburbanite for too much of my life, but nevertheless, I'm learning a lot. And one of the things that impresses me the most is how hard it is on our family farms. If we want to keep family farms in our state, these people need our support. So I recently went to the Vernon family farm in Newfields, and they are such a lovely family, and they're really up against it with crabby neighbors and requirements that they're constantly changing and having to meet. So I think anything that the state can do to make our family farms thrive and prosper, we should do. But as citizens, we all have a role to play because grocery prices are what they are. But if we can buy and eat healthy food and bring them home to our families, they'll prosper and we'll be healthier ourselves. So another thing about the agriculture is our committee has dealt with a proposal to put a very large landfill up north near a perennial body of water. And it was very clear to me from the beginning that they were trying to do that because the town has 900 people, and maybe they wouldn't notice, maybe they wouldn't be able to fight. But we can fight, and we are fighting. And I have spoken in the legislature twice about this issue because it just makes no sense to me. We need 21st solutions to our waste problem. And they're out there, but we have to be wily and keep up with the innovations that are out there. Another bill that I worked on was to ban glue traps. Now that's a 19th century solution to rodent control. And animals get stuck on these things and they actually chew their feet. That's how awful it is. And I had people testifying that, you know, farmers need them, and if you don't have a barn, you don't understand the problem. I don't think you have to be a farmer to understand that problem. So I did some research and learned that there's something called contra-pest. It's contraceptives for critters. Isn't that ingenious? So when I get back to the legislature, if I'm reelected, I'm going to introduce that idea to my committee and speak on the floor and see that we can put an end to these inhumane treatments of animals. How am I doing?
Very good.
Okay?
Would you like to note some accomplishments?
Certainly.
Or what you'd like to accomplish if you elected as Representative Haskins?
Start with what I sort of accomplished. There are a lot of issues that everyone knows about: housing and healthcare, daycare, or childcare. These all have been bills that have gone through the House in various different forms, good forms, bad forms, but they all still matter. They have not gone answered yet. So those are the issues that I think, and they go together. Healthcare and affordability of housing and affordability of childcare is really important, because if you can't put your child in a place that you can afford, then you're staying homes that keep care of your child, and that takes out workers from the workforce. Then the businesses have less people, and then you have a restaurant that's closed 3 days a week because they can't find someone. And that brings the affordable housing, which in this market, 1% of housing units are available. Normally it should be around 5%, so people have a choice of what kind of housing they want: rent, buy, etc. That one's going to be tough, and I'm still working on it with a couple other representatives. But what we've had going on here isn't just wealthy people coming in and buying a house and flipping it to sell it for even more. It's been enterprises, companies, pension plans that are coming in and buying up a neighborhood even, and then doing a little work on it and flipping it. Or, this is my favorite, short-term rentals. People turn their house, and you go on vacation somewhere, you don't want to stay in a hotel, you stay at someone's house, and you rent somebody's house for 2 weeks. Well, depending on what law you look at right now in the RSAs, short-term is either 30 days or 90 days. So I guess for the full summer you can have a place. But those take out, and there are short-term rentals listed in Exeter. You might not think so, but go on to Airbnb and you'll find a couple of places. One's right down the street from me. And so that house has 7 bedrooms that they're advertising. How many living units could go in that house? Exeter's been very permissive in our zoning ordinance that we allow for single-family houses to be converted with a simple special exception from the zoning board. Other towns really resist any changes to zoning because you can't tell me what I want in my town. And that's where our problem is convincing people in smaller towns, mostly up north, I have to say, that just because we please, I need a few more minutes. Was I doing goals?
It's okay.
Just 1 second. Not everybody. A lot of people think that if we allow for, let's say, accessory dwelling units, they're all of a sudden going to get absentee landlords and slums. And that's the biggest argument to try to get around. And then the details of how do we make that seem attractive is something that I'm working on this year, and with several other reps, not even from just my committee. We just all recognize the need for those things going together: housing, healthcare, and childcare. Thank you.
So when I was talking about my work on the judiciary, I was talking about battling extremism. I think of my work sometimes as a two-pronged approach at the State House. One is a lot of that, fighting extremism, but where there's compromise, where there's middle ground, where there's work to be done, I try to find it. And I'm proud to say I've been the prime sponsor on 3 bills, all related to voting rights, and they're bipartisan bills, with names on those bills that I wouldn't agree on, a lot of other issues. My first term, I was prime on a bill that requires, as part of students with their education program, if you're a student with disabilities, you have an educational program before you leave. Part of that program, by way of New Hampshire law, requires that every student with disability in the state of New Hampshire gets assistance in understanding and learning how to register to vote before they leave the high school.
Oh, I love that.
So what I was hearing from constituents was, hey, this community goals when our kid leaves school, there's some gaps there, and one way to fill that is when people vote, they become part of it's not only a right, but it is an obligation, right? But they also become part of the civic culture and the civic fabric. So I'm proud of that. That was the first term. This term, Jean Shiner, who many of you know, she's on a cruise, called me summer, I don't know, it must have been 2 summers ago, and said, did you know, Mark, that if you're visually impaired or blind, when you go in for a municipal vote, when you go in, you got to bring in the clerk and a witness and someone, you got to tell them who you're voting for on a municipal election. But there's a machine, an iPad basically, that allows you to go in if you're visually impaired and circle it, and you have a headset, and you can vote by secret ballot. I mean, can you imagine in this day and age that you got to tell 2 people who you're going to vote for, what on all those warrant articles and whatnot? So Gene said, we've got to do something about this. We've been trying for years. And I said, I agree. So we're managed in a bipartisan bill to pass legislation that requires these machines. They're called One for All machines. And they are now at every municipal election, if you have a visual impairment, anybody can use it. They're called One for All for a reason. I encourage you to use it. I use it. It's great. But you can go in and no one knows who you voted for. Think of it, so I'm proud of that. Again, a bipartisan bill. Both of these bills passed on the floor by consent or voice vote on the floor. So that means we had agreement. The third bill that I was prime on was a civics education bill. It's an extension of the work that I was doing with students with disabilities and voter registration. The idea behind this bill was to make sure that every student, whether you had a disability or not, had some assistance in understanding how to register to vote. So that bill got amended a little bit, but it did pass. Sununu signed all of these bills. I want to go back to the legislature and tweak that a little bit, but that's part of the work where there is an opening for compromise or solutions. That's part of the job of a legislator too, is to solve problems and not just stop bad things, but we've been doing a lot of that, but to try to solve problems when you're hearing from constituents and people that they have issues. How can we solve it at the State House? So I'm proud of those 3 bills, and I want to go back for more. I'm hearing other folks talk to me about what they want, what they think is important to them. So if I'm reelected, I'd like to continue that work in that space. Yeah, thanks.
Do you feel comfortable with your accomplishments and thinking of accomplishments?
Sure. Well, there's so much more to do, obviously. There's your committee work, and that's your first responsibility. That's how bills make it to the floor. But all these other things, all these extremists, they need support for their committee work, because we're all in this together. And there will be more of the voucher problem. I say public dollars for public schools everywhere I go, because I too am a public school kid, and public schools are the bedrock of the community. If we hollow them out, we don't have a community. So I feel very passionately about that, as I do about reproductive rights, as I do about gun safety. I belong to Moms Demand Action. There's a lot of work that we have to do because they're not going to quit. Sig Sauer is in our backyard. I don't know if you've seen the billboard on 101. It's threatening to me to even have to look at that. So there's a lot of other work that has to be done, as Mark said, stopping the extremist things, and then simultaneously working on the bills that protect our environment, protect our kids, and we're all at work on that.
Thank you. The school voucher issue has come up, and a few questions from both that are here. We just heard from Representative Haskins, Representative Gilman. And then the other issues, there was also an issue on women's health care, and then if there's anything else that you'd like to add as a third issue.
Thank you. Education freedom accounts. It's such a deceptive name. When the idea was first brought to the House of Representatives, it was the first thing I said was no way, just no way. Public education, that's what we're paid for, that's where my taxes are going, that's what I want to have, that's what I want to see. I want to pay the teachers I know, I want to educate the children my children know. I want them to go through the same schools I went through. If you don't like those schools, there's charter schools and other educational opportunities that people can take advantage of. So then they tried to sell it as this is for low-income families to be able to have those opportunities. So I could understand that. Still couldn't vote for it, but I could understand where they were coming from. And then this past year, they tried to increase the net worth or income level of a family that qualified. And they did that the second year, and they tried to do it again this year, and it failed this year. But the biggest thing is the management company that takes care of this account. They get 10% off the top of any of the scholarships. They are in New York City. I don't think they have any hands-on in New Hampshire whatsoever. And they were finally doing an audit, which the Education Commissioner did not want us to do. And there's a separate state auditing body that cannot get the information from this company because the commissioner, I just don't like saying his name, thinks that information belongs to the company. Whereas in their contract, it outright says that information belongs to the state. So this should be a freedom of education, freedom of information, thank you, freedom of information request that you should be able to make and get the information. There's a great piece by Gary Rayno from In-Depth New Hampshire about how many students have been, or how much accounting has been incorrect, how many students have been overpaid, how many families are over the income limit, what did they use the money for, things like that, that they're going to have to return money to the state. But what are we at now, 8 million? It's going to take a while for them to catch up to that. So with that, I'm going to...
School vouchers, can someone address that?
Sure.
Women's right to choose was also...
Okay. Yeah, sure. So vouchers, where do we begin? What can I add on to Julie's?
Fired up and ready to go.
Yeah, fired up and ready to go, right. I guess, the voucher scheme, really, is a scheme to take taxpayer dollars and fund private, and now the Supreme Court has spoken to fund religious schools, too. So I think for those of us who went to law school not too long ago, that's a problem. We find that problematic, separation of church and state. But that's the law now by the Supreme Court, and now we have this voucher scheme that has just expanded. Make no mistake about it, they've got their toe in the door, they have power, and they're using every inch of it, right? And when we think about public schools, first there's the taxpayer point, like we have no control over, we're funding that, but we have no control. There's the tax burden that gets shifted down to the local tax property owner, because that money goes, but we still got to fund the budget with all the fixed costs for schools, right? Still, you lose 2 kids in a 3rd grade classroom, you still need a teacher, you still got to put the lights on, you still got to pay the oil and all that. So all those costs remain, except now with less money. But the other thing is, I think one of the things that we need to remember is that the American public school system is our crown jewel. We take all comers, right? I mean, everybody who walks in the door gets free public education. It's not perfect. It needs assistance. It needs to change in certain ways, no doubt about it. And that's part of our experiment, is making things better. But when we are deconstructing public education, we are, in effect, taking one of those pillars of democracy and chipping away and trying to remove it. And we know what happens when that happens. So, the voucher scheme is a part of that. Make no mistake about it. 20 years ago, maybe it would have been hard. You would have sounded like a conspiratorial person if you said that. I think it's pretty evident right now, and many people are pretty much out in the open who are in favor of vouchers are saying that explicitly. They don't believe in public education, and that's a fundamental difference. I guess on reproductive freedoms and healthcare, I mean, these are all wrapped up in the larger umbrella point of freedoms, right? We are the party, the Democratic Party, in my view, right, that are defending freedoms. And hopefully when we go back, we flip the House and we can not only stop some of the extremist stuff, but go back to where we were in New Hampshire, where there wasn't an issue. And I think of Kamala Harris asking now Justice Kavanaugh, can you think of a similar restriction on your health? And I thought, no, he couldn't. And as a man, I don't go to my doctor's office and peruse the statutes to see what we can and can't do. My healthcare decision. That is an equality issue for sure. And so I think hopefully we can get back to that. But anyway, so I have three daughters as well. So I'm just adding that when you're sitting on the judiciary and your first bills are on this stuff, you're thrown in the deep end of the committee work. And but I think the momentum is with us to flip the House. If we can flip the House, at least we have, and the Senate and the Executive Council and the Governor's Office, we can start making some progress. But getting back to New Hampshire grand state values.
Well, I don't think I can add on to anything that Mark has said. I am in total agreement, and this is the fight we have when you have a Republican say we should be able to stop some woman's action because she's still ripe and fertile. And we heard those words on the floor of the House. What can you say to that but no? Yeah. So, to back up onto what Mark has given you, we need to protect our public education because it is quality. Exeter has quality education and our whole SAU. And it has been under attack and if you've gone to any of the school board meetings, you've seen the folks that want to have some control of their own. They want to say, you can't do that, or you can do that, or give me this. And we should trust our teachers, and we should trust our school administration, because if they're doing something really wrong, it's pretty blatant. People don't sneak around or get hidden. I think I lost where I went. So I pass it on to Linda.
You want to take it?
Did you want to speak to vouchers or anything?
No, I think we've done justice to that.
Right to choose.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean.
The question came up, Mark, just for a minute, if we can, Paige, if we can tap your experience with the question came up about voter registration, whether or not that's been restricted unfairly. The right to the requirements of having citizenship, birth certificate, whatever it might be, that the law also allows for affidavit or whatever else might be provided. But what is the deal? Is there an effort to, you think, suppress or to limit voting? We had a tape years ago of a fellow that was concerned that college kids were voting, and there was a fight over domicile or residency or something. What is happening in the voter registration and voter participation issue?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think it's a trite expression, but one of the first things you hear parroted in the legislature is that's a bill in search of a problem. And you hear it so often, you kind of chuckle because it becomes an overused phrase, but once in a while, it's right. And some of the bills that we did have an affidavit, I don't know, Senator signed it, Governor signed it, 1569, which changed. Right now, you can, it required, we have a citizenship requirement bill, we have a bill we have a number of bills that made voter registration, citizenship being one. That's a new sort of track, right, which is hard for some folks sometimes. We don't have it, it's not required. I'm not even sure it would be constitutional. I think there was a case on it. But yeah, I mean, there is an effort underway to make it harder for people to register to vote. And we don't have a problem with fraud in voter registration in New Hampshire. We don't have a problem. So the efforts to restrict that are, I wouldn't even call it a solution in search of a problem, I'd call it a problem in search of a problem. And so, yeah, I think you have to ask yourself, why is that? Right? And there are, I've focused a lot of my work on helping younger people register to vote. And I'm proud to say my daughter ran a voter registration drive with other folks at the high school. And it can be a, when you're 18 and you go down a town, for us it might be easier. But if you're 18 and you don't know your way around the system, and it can be a little intimidating to try to figure out what documents do I need, and then you meet hopefully someone who's nice and kind and says, oh, these are the things and this is how you do it. But it can be difficult. But so some of the bills that I propose have tried to lower those barriers and help people register to vote. We don't have a fraud problem in registering to vote. The system was working. When we're seeing bills that add on restrictions to a problem that doesn't exist, you have to ask yourself, why is that? What are you afraid of if young people vote? What are you afraid of people who haven't been able to vote, register and vote? And so that's a question you have to ask. But yeah, I think there is a concerted effort to make it more difficult to register. And if it's more difficult to register, then obviously it's going to become more difficult to vote.
Not particularly.
Thank you. A couple of questions that came up. Perhaps the environmental concerns that have been raised. Will there ever be a bottle bill in New Hampshire?
So every session, there is an effort to get a bottle bill in New Hampshire. Last session, there was an effort. Next session, there'll be an effort. We have to say we're gaining momentum at some point, We know that other states have done it, but what Mark says is so true. If we have just a few more votes and a Democrat in the corner office, we can get this done. But without those votes, it just doesn't go anywhere. So we hear you, we know how important it is, we all want it, and we'll keep working, but we need the majority in order to do some of these things.
Would you like to comment?
The bottle bill, so Massachusetts, Connecticut, other states take the bottles back. So you pay a penny or two, and they take the bottles back. Now, the whole idea of recycling is under threat as well. China doesn't want our plastic anymore. So fewer of the items that I buy in the grocery store are actually recyclable. And I lament that. More farm shopping, less bring my bags, and less plastic. But some of the things, the yogurt I eat, and it's just hard to avoid. But we all, individually, we can all make a dent. And before we're done, and this may not be the time, I want an army of volunteers. I want everyone seated in this room to pick something they're willing to do for this election. I'm a door knocker. I love talking to people, you can probably guess. But not everybody has to do that. You can write postcards, you can make phone calls. The Rockingham Democratic Office on 27 would love to see you. Some people file They put together packets of literature so that those of us who are door knocking have something to go to the door with. So there's something for everybody to do, but we really do need everyone.
Representative that came up with the issue of the out-of-state trash that's coming into New Hampshire landfills. Do you have any comments on the bottle bill and the trash?
I will say that I am not an expert on that bill. I think it's a great idea. And the trash coming from out of state, that has been documented. People have seen the trucks. We know where they're delivering. We know where they're coming from. We know that Maine, we have trash coming from Maine, and we have trash going to Maine. I don't know, it's from the same company. I don't know why. I don't know why they're trading trash. We don't want that trash, we want that trash, it's better. But the main company that wants to, or the biggest, largest company that wants to put in the new landfill up near Forest Lake, and say Forest Lake, I get that email constantly for the last 4 or 5 years, and they give us the arguments. That company does bring their trash from Massachusetts, and it does not serve New Hampshire. So stopping them from having leaching chemicals into a pristine lake is something that we must do. And that bill will keep coming back. It will keep coming back, but so far we've been able to push it back.
Okay. Representative Paige, can you comment on the bottle bill and the...
I don't have anything to add
Yeah.
to that. I think it's really
issue housing crisis that's been noted. What is some of the legislation that...
Yes, absolutely, you're our best spokesperson.
Okay, sitting on the Municipal and County Government Committee is where this question usually goes. This past term, the Speaker developed a new committee called the Special Committee on Housing, and we had no idea what it was supposed to do. It didn't have a mission statement. It was just a bunch of people he liked who were going to talk about housing and figure something out. They came up with some bills that had some good things, but they weren't as, the people on that committee weren't as familiar with zoning or any kind of land use law. Whereas on my committee, there's, from the Democratic side, over 60 years of experience dealing with municipal and land use law. So why are we not good enough to do this housing thing? I did try. I took on a bill from a representative who did not get reelected one term. And it was called the fourplex bill, and it actually had number HB 44. So you couldn't forget what it was. And it was to allow a property owner to divide up their property, whether it's a single family, into up to 4 units. But it had to be owner occupied, and it had to be on municipal water and sewer, so that we weren't taking more water out of the water table than aquifer. Thank you. That bill failed because, as I said before, people don't want that in my backyard. They were concerned about overuse or overcapacity on their water and sewer, which, again, in Exeter, we're so fortunate because I can sit at this committee and say, well, here is what you do, because this is what we've done. We've sized up our wastewater treatment plant, so the new development that's coming along is going to be able to handle it. And we've planned out how much we can handle. And actually, there's a simple tool that can be used for people who are concerned about this, is just when somebody goes in for a building permit, have the building inspector check off a box after he talks to the water and sewer folks and say, is this going to bring us over capacity? And that's all it would take, is a simple checkbox and communication between departments. So that bill did not pass, unfortunately. I thought it had a lot of good things, but the NIMBYs kept coming. So then the next year came a bill from the special committee. And they took all the best parts of some bills that have been before us about accessory dwelling units, which are extra things that you can build onto your house, an extra housing unit you can build onto your house or next to it. as long as you met all the zoning requirements, etc. And again, they just went a little too far and forced the planning board to approve things if certain conditions are met outright, at the beginning of the project. So the planning board could have no input. The other was to give, for you voters, to allow the select board to make changes to the zoning ordinance anytime we feel like it. and again, it was enabling. You folks would have to vote for that, but it's a slippery slope to start giving the select board lots of power. So we're going to be working, my group's working on taking the best parts of those pieces and putting them together, being able to explain it so that John Doe, representative from, what's that? I'm going to say Bow, but there's a better town, for example, will understand how this will not affect his personal property. And that's when they start talking about property rights. I need to be able to do whatever I can do on my property, but you can't. You can't. We're not going to let you do that. So I can have an ADU, but you can't because you don't meet the requirements. It's that kind of hypocrisy that we hear on these things. So we have to refine what we can do, and some of it is zoning, some of it, but the resistance about Exeter can't tell Gorham what to do is a really hard climb. And so when it gets to it, I'm going to be calling on all of you to send all your messages to my committee, particularly to the chair and to the Speaker of the House and to the governor, whoever she may be, to help us back this and find a solution that isn't going to cost you just one second. Isn't going to cost you. The thing that we have to think about is affordability. It's not necessarily the number of units, but how to control the cost. Right now, with this bill that came up and said you can build up to 1,000 square foot house on your property if you meet the side setbacks, etc. Well, 1,000 square feet in today's building prices, and I know this as an architect, it's 325 square feet, $325 per square foot to build a new house. So if you're limited to 1,000 square feet, that's your maximum, then that unit's going to cost $325,000. Now, if you're building one of those, are you taking out a mortgage to pay for that, or do you already have the money to do that? If you're taking out a mortgage, you don't want to spend another 20 years of your life paying for something that you're not living in, or maybe you will live in it later. But the rent from that unit is not going to be cheap. It's not going to be low because they have a goal of the return on investment. So there's something that's got to be made differently about that. Makes it more attractive, like owner-occupied. One of the units has to be owner-occupied. That way you get rid of the slumlord scare. You get rid of this place is a mess scare. And not everybody's going to take advantage of it. So we have the tools. We just need to put them all in one good bill. So,
okay, thank you. Thank you. We were hoping to go till about 7:30. That sounds right for people. So perhaps if you don't mind, there was a question on infrastructure. If there's anything that you know that should be getting attention, that was the only, and then keeping young people in New Hampshire. Anything that you've done on that idea. Otherwise, can we just perhaps just young people and
young people, all for them. The infrastructure bill that the Biden administration passed has a lot of federal dollars floating around. Boy, would I like to get my hands on some of those dollars. I want them for family farms to build up the structures, because a lot of our family farms are dilapidated and old. So if anybody's a grant writer in the audience, I'm on the lookout. Keeping young people in the state is the twin problems of employment and housing, right? I'm really impressed when I go door to door in the town how many individuals are listed in each dwelling. It's very often 5, 6, 7. Now, they could be registered there and not living there. That's a possibility. Adult children who registered in town and have moved away and haven't changed their registration. But a number of families are doubling up. So I unfortunately don't have the solution to this problem. I think it's one we have to attack in every way we can. We'd love to keep our young people. We'd love to have them start families here and have the next generation grow up in the town. But that's getting harder for all towns. So I'm not sure where to go with that.
Oh, they're young, but yeah, I mean, to just sort of summarize, all the issues that we've been talking about, you know, housing affordability, childcare, solid public schools, attracting businesses, clean water, right? We all know New Hampshire is a wonderful place to live, and getting here, if you want to live here, is difficult, right? If you're starting a family or young, because of the rent and cost of a starter ADU is $325, so that's a high price. So all of these things that were related, I think, that we've talked about and addressed in this forum, you know, touch and address this issue. So hopefully we can make progress on all these things going forward. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Very nice. If we do take the notion about 7:30, because we tend to stop, and I guess we need to thank the representatives for their time tonight. The incumbent, Gabriel Grossman, was not able to be here tonight for family obligation, and the fifth name, Katrina Heinrich, was not able to attend. But we, again, want to thank our other state rep, Alexa Simpson, our state senator, Dave Anschiller, and for those people that want to follow it too, John Morgan is the executive council candidate. It's going to be an exciting primary on September 10th.
Yes, please come out and vote, because I'm sure you know that there are 5 people on the ballot and only 4 of us will get elected. So we are your incumbents with Gabi. We are a team. We know what we're doing. We've been doing it, and we'd like to have you send us back to Concord. Amen.
Thank you for viewing. And if you'd still like to speak to the reps, there'll be time for chat.
We'll see you at the Democratic office down on 27th.
Okay, Kelly has announcements. Hi, I'm Kelly Warner. I'm the vice chair of the Exeter Dems. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. So let's see, announcements. We have our next Libations with Liberals event, which is our more informal event at Sea Dog on Monday the 2nd. So if you want to come at 6:30, you're probably on our mailing list and you know about that. But if you're not on our mailing list and you signed in, I'll try to add you. If you want to donate to the Exeter Dems, the blue sparkly hat is by the door and you can donate on your way out. And there's also flyers on the table for the Exeter Dems and various other candidates who left things by the door, so you can check that out on the way out. Randy Gray has some postcards to send to Pennsylvania. They don't include postage, but if you want to contribute to the sending postcards to a swing state, Pennsylvania, and are okay with paying for postage, I have them in my hand. Randy, raise your hand. There we go. Randy's right there, but you can come find me or you can find her and talk to us about these postcards that are in my hand. Anybody else have announcements?
Hi, I'm Eileen Flockhart. I just wanted people to know that should you be on the road tomorrow between 7:30 and 8:30 and want to stop and join us, we're going to have a little visibility with signs and some of these folks jumping up and down and looking for honking horns. And it's just another way to not only put a face to a name, but also to remind people that just around the corner is our primary, and sometimes that goes right out of your head if you've got a busy life and you don't think about it. One other thing I'd like to mention, right here at the Great Bridge, the one that's up by Sea Dog. And the other thing is that we are looking, you know, as we need people to come, and there's 69 days, as Elizabeth from the office says to me, we're down to the wire here. And we need everybody and anybody to do whatever you think you can do. And even if it's something you think, oh, I never do that, stop by the office and someone can help you do that. I tried learning how to do the computerized van form. I couldn't do it. So Kelly went with me, and I did the driving, and we knocked on doors, and we met lots of nice people, and nobody screams at you or anything. And the more person-to-person contact you get, postcards and phone calls, I think Elizabeth said you get about a 5% positive return. When you meet somebody face-to-face, it's 15 or 20%. So if you're looking for a good bang for your buck in terms of your time, we sure could use you. So it's right up on Epping Road.
104 Epping Road.
104, you can park. There's lots of terrific, friendly young people who are so excited you walk in the door, they don't know what to do. So we would love to see anybody and everybody. Whatever day you can come by, there's always something happening. Monday is closed, I think.
Yes, and I think they might have been closed the past day or two for a
They had
retreat or
a
something.
training or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but generally they're open.
Yeah.
Any other announcements? Yes. Thank you for coming, folks. Get out and vote.
Thank you for all your support.